78 days and counting in the Texas legislative session. How will lawmakers dole out a $31 billion surplus? How will leaders keep their pledge to make schools safer? Will Texas parents get funding to educate kids where they choose? Can casino gambling finally get a green light? What will be done to strengthen the grid? And will legislators consider exceptions to the state's blanket ban on abortion? Much to decide under the Capitol dome, and not much time to do it. I'm Greg Grugan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, former Congressman and Houston City Council member Chris Bell. Next up, Rice political analyst Mark Jones. In the 3 spot, well-known Houston political reporter Doug Miller. Batting cleanup, Jackie Bally, political science professor at the UH downtown. And closing us out, Charles Blaine, founder of Urban Reform. Let's begin. $31 billion. That's more than $1,000 for every man, woman, and child in this state. We have a very clear indication where at least half the state's surplus cash is headed, because both Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick have publicly earmarked it for property tax relief, including a whopping $30,000 permanent increase in the homestead exemption. Panel Democrats in the minority have complained that Texans who rent their dwellings contributed mightily to this surplus, but will likely see little rebate. That has been a complaint of yours, Charles Blaine.
It has, and it's not just Democrats in the legislature. It's a lot of engaged renters across the state. As we know, there are, I think, almost 40–50% of Houston are renters. Same thing with Dallas and Dallas County. So there are a lot of renters who aren't going to benefit from a homestead exemption. But it's not just renters. We're also talking about landlords, because we know that homestead exemptions only apply to homesteads. So if you own a rental property or any other commercial business, you're not going to benefit from that. So the House is proposing a 5% taxable value cap that would apply to commercial businesses. Some people are saying that that may or may not be the solution needed to that problem. But yeah, there's a large portion of Texans who might not benefit from a homestead exemption.
Mark Jones, I was talking to a pretty high-profile Republican lawmaker, and I asked that question. He basically ignored me. So I guess it's going to be property tax, huh?
Well, I think there's definitely going to be homestead exemption increase from $40,000 to $70,000 or $40,000 to $60,000. The difficulty with the House proposal is that while you can lower the appraisal rate maximum increase from 10% to 5% and extend it to commercial properties, there's no guarantee that apartment owners will pass on that savings to their residents. And so you have to ask the question, are apartment owners more avaricious or generous? I think the experience, at least in Houston, is they lean towards the side of avarice.
All right, Jackie, you know both of those top guns, Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Patrick. Do you think they're going to stick to their guns and keep the lion's share, almost half of the surplus, in the property tax relief category?
This is something that they both said that they were planning to do. It was a priority for the governor. I'm not surprised at all. They have set aside $15 billion just for property tax relief, as we've said, for homestead exemption to increase from $40,000 to $70,000. This is something that they have been planning, and both the governor and lieutenant governor are in lockstep, and this is something that's going to happen for Texans.
Chris Bell, Dade Phelan, the House Speaker, made the point before the session that none of this surplus came from property tax. It came from sales tax and increased revenues from energy. Does it make sense to you to offer this big property tax relief?
Good politics, terrible policy. That amount of money could have done a lot of good here in the state of Texas, infrastructure and other very serious needs that we have in Texas. And because of the fact that they made those pledges, that, yeah, half of it's going to go. And I think people are going to welcome that. Obviously, most in the Republican camp, or many in the Republican camp, are homeowners. But from a policy standpoint, going back to what Charles was pointing out, we have a huge renting population now. And lawmakers really need to be talking about that and how that's going to impact our society. Folks used to say home ownership was the greatest social program known to man. Well, that's really changing. I mean, because of what it would do for families and communities, but that's changing, and nobody's really talking about what we need to do in light of that change.
Doug Miller, it seems like a position of advantage for Republicans. You know, it's hard for Democrats to argue against property tax relief, even, you know, for working class families.
Yeah, it's tough to say to somebody, no, we don't think we're going to lower your taxes. But here's the deal, and I feel like somebody who's kind of like being the Debbie Downer at a party. Texas is flush with cash right now, but we know that at some point the party's going to be over and Texas is going to need money in the future, right? And one of the problems with lowering taxes is once you lower them, it's dang near impossible to raise them again. So okay, you can give away the money now, give it back to the people you got it from, in effect. But later, whenever Texas gets in trouble, well, watch out, because it's dang near impossible to raise taxes once you've lowered them. I'll say that.
All right, Mark Jones, are we missing anything here, or what should we bring to the table in this discussion?
Well, there's also been a discussion of potentially trying to help renters by reducing the sales tax. That, as Doug mentions, though, that creates a whole potential problem down the road in the sense of reducing revenue for the state. I think there is, though, the logic within reducing revenue of the state is that that's the design of this. So, particularly among many Republicans who want to see a smaller state and less taxes, they are less concerned with not being able to raise taxes in the future simply because they don't want to. So the idea that if you lower property taxes now or any other tax now, that you'll have problems in the future, they're more willing to say, okay, we'll just cut spending rather than go back to raise taxes. And that's not seen as negative by them as it might be by others.
Quickly, Charles Blaine, are you seeing any pushback, organized pushback from Democrats either at the legislature or at the local level?
I'm not effective. I mean, I've seen some outspoken Democrats about kind of leaving a large portion of the Texas population outside of property tax relief and saying that they wanted them included. But I haven't seen any sort of organized opposition to this. Most of the opposition has been geared towards a lot of the preemption stuff that we're going to talk about.
All right, we're going to go ahead and leave it right there.